you got a question or a story to tell, from the smallest town to the big city belle, got a business dream you're hoping to start, or a question on elections and how to do your part. Now Bryan's here and he's ready to listen to the good people of Arkansas. The mission, he served the nation, now he's serving you for a stronger future and a vision that's new. Welcome to the Ready Room. Got a question? Let's talk it through. Welcome to the Ready Room, where your voice is heard and the people rule.
In every mission, there's a moment before the action begins. A place where warriors gather, gear up, and steel themselves for what's ahead. I'm Bryan Norris. Welcome to the Ready Room. All right. Everyone, welcome back to the Ready Room. Pretty excited about this one. Been having it in the works for a little while, about a month, a little over a month. My guest today is Dr. Marcus Birkenkopf. Did I say it right?
Very well.
Very well. All right, I'll take it. So, quick introduction for you. Dr. Marcus Birkenkopf is an associate professor of computer and data science at Lyon College right here in Batesville, Arkansas. He spent more than 20 years working across the world, across the worlds of academia, Fortune 500 companies, and executive coaching. He's led global IT and knowledge programs, built a data science program from the ground up, and coached senior leaders on how to navigate change. On top of that, he holds a PhD in theoretical physics, figure that one out, which already puts him in a league of his own. And he's published more than 60 works and spoken at over 50 international conferences. So to say I'm out of my league is an understatement, but I'm going to do my best. But Marcus isn't just about the academic side of AI and automation. What I really appreciate about Dr. Marcus is that he makes these big topics real. He knows how to connect cutting-edge technology with everyday life and relate it to even a knuckle-dragger like myself. So whether it's helping small businesses, hopefully making government offices more efficient, or sparking conversations about ethics and trust in this new age of artificial intelligence, which is quite scary sometimes the way people are using it. And if you know Marcus, you also know he's got a great sense of humor. Even though, from his German background, still got a fantastic sense of humor. He told me he wasn't sure if he should show up tonight dressed like a professor, a German, or in camo. And then he admitted he doesn't even own camo. So that right tells you we're in for a good conversation.
You're giving it all away now. So.
When you said that, I just had to laugh out loud. So tonight we're going to dive into the future of AI. And what it means for leaders, citizens, and yes, even for elections. We're also going to hear from Marcus, the way I know him, as a teacher, a thinker, and someone who's not afraid to ask hard questions about how technology can serve people better. So, like I said, I'm excited about this one, and I want to thank you again for coming to Kiwanis last weekend for us. That was phenomenal. The way that you tied in academia with technology and that trifecta that you discussed about, that was extremely relatable.
That's academic freedom. What was it?
It was academic freedom, responsibility, and
fortitude.
Yeah. And the way you flipped it with the picture of the egg.
The concept in the egg.
Yeah. And you tied that all together. It It was phenomenal.
That was really cool how attentive the audience was. I mean, it was education, that's not everybody's business, and AI, which apparently is everybody's business, but nobody really knows much about it. Everybody talks about it. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, it's become everyone's business because it's kind of penetrated everything. Elon Musk says he doesn't make cars; he makes artificial intelligence on wheels and artificial intelligence spacecraft. You got lead business executives now transitioning their entire business model, flipping it on its head, and incorporating these new technologies. You have government organizations, most notably Doge, that utilized AI to go through all of it. It was. I read that it was the first ever audit of the entirety of the United States government. And they could not have done it without AI because it's so vast. So in that aspect, it actually helped them. It couldn't do a lot of good for the citizenry on that aspect because there's a lot of waste. I've seen it. Everyone says it. You hear about $40,000 for a hammer, $60,000 for a toilet. I mean, some of that is true. But when they say $60,000 for a toilet, they're talking about one that was built specifically for NASA, and they only got 2 of them. So there are some circumstances where that comes true. And then one aspect as a military guy, just what AI is going to do on the battlefield. And I'm grateful that it's not going to be my battlefield, and I'm done. What I've seen from the Ukraine conflict with the FPV drones, and then the automated drones with AI and all that stuff.
So it's an inhuman battlefield, really.
It's, yes, and everything that I knew about Army and tactics and training and stuff is going to be changed. There's no element of surprise. There's no real cover and concealment because the cameras can see through everything. Where are you going to hide it? So it's interesting.
So it's much more like a video game, except it's in reality, of course. In video games has this capability of making the battlefield completely transparent, but of course it's a virtual reality. It's not the real reality. But when you talk about, you just said, the excitement, especially among executives, that of course is very reminiscent of the excitement about the web and the internet before the last bubble burst. And you're beginning to hear voices about, there's so much investment, so much excitement. Will the bubble burst? When will it burst? I'm not in the business of making predictions. Actually, I'm in the business of making predictions, but in this particular case, I wouldn't want to make a prediction. But it definitely reminds me of that other time, which I was very much around for. In fact, I was in business at the time, not in academia at all. And process automation and optimization, knowledge management, that was my main job.
So what do you see that's similar and reminiscent of that?
Well, certainly the excitement, also the disconnect. It's some form of magic. Now the internet, as the name almost says, has an international aspect and a network aspect. You can explain it as it's even used that word as an international information highway. So there's an infrastructure metaphor that you can use. And everybody understands infrastructure. I want to drive with a lot of cars down the road. I need a wide road. That's the issue of bandwidth, right? Mm-hmm. So people can understand it. The big difference with AI is that it immediately hooks into something that's very core to us, our intelligence, and therefore I would say bypasses some of our critical faculties, where in the late 1990s it was easier for executives to say, hold on, let's see if we can bring our traffic down the road the regular way, and let's build slowly, let's pilot, let's build things up slowly. And it seems, though I don't spend too much time listening to social media or the news, but it seems as if a large part of the world, as you suggested, at the moment is ready to jumpstart into this, And yes, Elon sells AI in wheels, and I know some people have Teslas, but most people don't. Right. Most people don't even have electric cars. Yep. So
I got some feedback. Can we move your mic up a little bit? They're saying you're hard to hear.
Okay. Up.
Yeah.
Shall I move it here?
Yeah, maybe up there a little bit. Get a little closer to you.
Okay. Maybe then I'm hard to hear because I mumble the German
You don't
way.
mumble.
And mumbling is a good way of afterwards saying, I didn't say that, I mumbled. So
Let us know if that
Anyway.
if that clears it up, please.
Yeah. is that
so
working better? Can you hear me better?
We'll see. Somebody will give us some feedback. She said that. I think that's good.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Anyway, so the disconnect between what is and what could be, people are willing to jumpstart the whole thing and race into the future.
Do you think that they're not thinking through the second, third order effects of what they're getting into thoroughly enough?
They can't. I mean, they can't even be blamed because there's not a lot of information on the ground, either provided by the makers of the AI or by the people who use it. There's not a lot of transparency. That's another big difference to the internet. Pretty much all of the technology of the internet was completely open source. The first browser, the standards themselves, they were out in the world immediately, right away. And I remember there was a time when, because I was one of the original developers of the World Wide Web, when I was, one of 10 people having a lot of intimate knowledge, but in a very, very short time, instead of 10 people, there were 1,000, 100,000, 1 million, and all those people had very deep knowledge in a very, very short time because it was all the cards lay on the table. So you have to admit, at the moment, that's not the case in AI.
No, it's not the case.
And Elon, for example, would like it that way. One of his main issues, from what I understand, with OpenAI is that this was meant to be an open. As the name says.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And him and Sam Altman kind of got into a little tiff because it's no longer a not-for-profit, it's a for-profit. Yeah. And that's kind of one of the reasons why he started Grok. Yeah. And his is for-profit, but it was from the bat. So, I mean, at least he was being transparent about that. Yeah. I get concerned with major corporations and so much money is being in a monopoly of any set, whether that's a grocery store or whether that's a streaming service. Because typically what you tend to see is they come in out of the gate offering a service that's quite good at a very, very reasonable price, typically even better than what you can get from somewhere else. So people start driving to it.
To get the first wave of customers.
Yes. Yeah. And then they will price out their competition. And they'll keep their prices artificially low until their competition ends up dying off because they can't afford to keep doing it.
And until the consumers feel a sense of dependency on the product.
Right. Yeah. And then they start jacking the prices up. And that's the concern that I have. Like right now, OpenAI is $20 for an individual. It's easy. You just keep going with it. But if they follow the same model and people get so dependent on it, they could raise those rates up to the nth degree. And then people's left with the position, well, I've built my entire business and life on this model. So they've got me, and Microsoft has that in the manufacturing world. Microsoft and SAP do,
Now, there is another difference also because between AI and the internet, which I kind of want to highlight because of what you say, what you implied. There's this we were nowhere and then all of a sudden we're everywhere with AI. But that, of course, is not true, in particular for government services or all business services. AI, in the sense of building predictive models, has been with us for a very long time. In fact, I did some of that work at Shell, more than 25 years ago.
Can you give an example of what you're talking about with the predictive modeling?
Well, what I'm talking about is that you use I'll give you a simple example. If you have a bunch of sales and you want to know where these sales are going, one of the simplest things is to try to fit a curve through those existing sales points that goes into the future. And that already would be called a model because you don't know how the sales are going to be in the future, but your curve, if you extend it, will tell you where you're at, where you might be at.
So trying to get a run rate on
get a trend line.
Right.
Now, there's, depending on how the points go, you might sell a lot, you might sell a little. Now, that's a difficult curve, but if your business develops in a linear way, which is a usually a good assumption because you learn and you learn. You don't learn a lot in a day, but you build up slowly and slowly. So it will likely follow a linear curve, which means a line. It will follow a line, a trend line,
Right.
a straight line. And this is called a linear regression model.
Right.
So that's a very old model. And not only it's an old model, but it's the model that, despite the existence of 400 other models, is still the dominant model in the not just in the market, but in the world.
Well, it's proven that it works.
Yeah.
Just like Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations Principles and Foundation. They work.
Yeah.
They're timeless. I mean, he printed that book in 1776. But if you just follow and stick to the principles of it, you're going to be successful as an economy of a nation. When the government starts influencing the marketplaces, that's when things get off kilter. And then you gotta keep dumping money into it to keep it afloat. I mean, the same thing happened to Louis XVI of France. That's exactly why the monarch fell in France. It's because of that model, what they were doing. So what do you see in terms of AI? Are there things that scare you as far as like the over-reliance? And let's not just say like the personal aspect of it, because we've hit on that, and I do want to dive into that. But sticking to business, are there some scary items around that when you see people over-relying on it, and what could some of those trip mines be?
Well, I'm German, as you pointed out and shared with the world, so I don't scare easily. But so I wouldn't say scary. I wouldn't even say it makes me anxious. But I think there is a tendency to I don't know how to put it really. Well, you've said it yourself already. There's a tendency to rely on it and put all your eggs in one basket, basically. Yeah. And the technology doesn't have the maturity. There's not enough experience with it. Not enough pilots have been run to justify that, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out on a limb with an innovation. That doesn't mean that at all. But you need to.
But you could control it.
Well, that's one of the issues with this particular technology. Can you control it?
Well,
that's one of my personal
You can
beefs.
set parameters around it. We do this in my job all the time. You create a user acceptance training model, and you don't move your live row into it.
That's true.
Right off the bat. You
have a testing environment before you have a production
and you go through it and you run it through the rails. But I don't see that when it comes to AI. Like these tools just show up, and then people start using them. And they get so far ahead of their skis that they don't have policies built around it to control the way that people are using it or what tools that they're going to be using. And before we dive a little bit deeper, I was so excited to talk to you that I forgot to do something I was supposed to do at the beginning. Okay. So I want to gift you something. I'm going to give you two things. You're a coffee lover just like I am. These are fresh roasted, 3 days old. And there's a piece of green felt on there. And you served in the German Army.
That's right.
And in the American Army, we had a tradition when I first came in called the Green Leaders Tab. And so in your Class A's, that would sit on your shoulder boards. And so when you walked into a room, you could see who had soldiers reporting underneath them. And that meant something because rank is one thing, but being a leader is another thing, right? And I took pride in that when I got my first Leaders Tab. In fact, I still have it. And I used mine as a bookmark. And I do that for the reason that it reminds me that whenever I'm making decisions, that the decisions don't just affect me. There's other people that's involved in the decisions that I'm making. And there's many times where it's made me pause on a course of action. Firing off an email, maybe too soon, being a little too hasty with someone, or wanting to push too hard on something. Just give me that little brief pause and react. So I just wanted to gift you those things. I'm trying to start a movement with the Green Leaders Tab.
I was thinking this is free consulting, but no, it's not. Coffee and a leadership side. Thank you so much. Well, this reminds me, your little story reminds me of something I heard a long time ago, which is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're a leader in this particular area, but everywhere else you're a slob.
Yeah.
That's not the way it works.
And so what I've been doing is I've been handing these out now everywhere I go and speak to everyone. Yeah. And I tell them, like, look, you're a leader of your family. Mm-hmm. You're a leader of your community because you're here, you're invested, you care. So let's start acting like leaders and everything, all the decisions that we make. And let's make decisions that aren't just good for me, but are good for all of us.
Yes.
Because if we all start doing that, the pennies will take care of themselves, then the dollars will take care of themselves. And as one family gets better, that community gets better, the state will get better. And that's how we create real change, substantive change that matters.
That has an interesting question for you, because today somebody came into the classroom I gave him 5 minutes of their time, of the students' time, to explain his model and his company, and this was very much about leadership and doing something for your country and doing your service. Now, do you think that this message you just said about leadership, being leaders, resonates with the young people? Does it, in your experience? Not your wish. Of course, we wish it would, but do you think it does?
It's hit or miss. It's hit or miss. I would say 20%, yes. But I will say
20% of the youth.
20% of the youth will go for it. I will say that the ones that do, that 20%, are probably better than the 80% in my generation. They're hungry, and they're really what caught me off guard about them. Because everyone likes to say that Gen Z's lazy and they don't want to do stuff and yada yada yada. We've all heard that. But what caught me off guard is that's not entirely true. It's oversimplifying what they're frustrated. They're extremely frustrated, and they don't see the country going in a good direction. They see a lot of lies and stuff that's being said, and they get force fed it. And they don't. No one trusts the government right now, and you can't really blame them with all the shenanigans and stuff that's going on and things that are coming out. And they don't see a future, and that's very troublesome. When I talk to a lot of people that's in that 18 to 25 range, they all say Social Security is not going to exist for me. My profitability as a young man or young woman is nothing like what it was when you were coming in, because our money has been devalued to such an extent that the purchasing power that you had when you started life is 100%, 200% better than what I have now. And they're right. I sat down and did the math. When you talk about that run rate and that prediction model and stuff that you had done before at work, I did that off the model, and I use this as a talking point. If I would have purchased my home in 1980, it would have cost me $85,000, roughly. Maybe, let's say $100,000, right? When I purchased a home in 2021, it was $270,000, right? That was a 430% increase, something like that. The average income in 1980 in this area was $28,000. Today, the average income is $32,000.
So it
32 to 35.
It hasn't kept pace.
You're looking at a 12 to 15% increase in income versus a 400 and something percent increase in the values of home. And that trajectory is continuing when you see the way that things are going right now. And that's why I discuss so much as Secretary of State about creating generational wealth, because the only way that my kids are going to have a chance to bridge that gap is if I earn more money, vastly more than I need, and then I take care of it responsibly, save it and compound it, and then I can gift them something or purchase land to where they can build a home on, help them build that home, purchase their car, because otherwise they're not going to be able to afford it. Because if that run rate continues, when my oldest daughter gets married at, say, 20, that's going to be in 7 years. That my house at that point in time is going to be $600,000 if that line continues.
Unaffordable for somebody.
Totally unaffordable. Yeah. Let's say she even goes and gets her doctorate and becomes a general practitioner in medicine. Starting out salary is $150,000 a year. Well, now you're looking at 5 times your base salary for a year to get into your home, just to get into your home.
No, I like the there's a traditional model behind what you just said. Doing this for your kids is actually how things used to be. Well, much more than everybody does it on their own, has to do it on their own, and which means ultimately, if they want to make it at all and there's no family, the state has to step in. But you said yourself, people are wary of the government all over the world, not just here.
That's not just
And
here.
so, if that results in them looking closer to home, closer to their families,
Well, I
nurturing
think-
those families, that's a good path.
I think we got to get out of the mindset of kicking our kids out at 18 and tell them to go make it on their own.
But that's very much the German model, actually, or the European model. In Germany, Italy, even more. The further down south you go, the idea that kids have to leave home and go far away to, I don't know, find themselves or something like that is not really popular. It's never been popular. So.
No. And that's when it first really hit home for me. Of course, living in Europe, you see, especially in Germans in Bavaria, they build family homes and they add on to it, and that's where the kids go and
Pass
live.
them on, yeah.
And they pass them on,
Yeah.
and it allows them to live very comfortably, generationally in their home, and then they have an in-home care system. The grandmother is taking care of the kids and stuff while the parents are working and doing things. They live right there. It's next door. It's comfortable. It's the home. They know it.
Yeah.
And then as the grandparents age, well, then the kids and the grandkids help take care of them at the end of the life. You don't just pawn them off on something. So there's definitely something to be said for that. I like seeing that over there.
Okay, so all that came out of the
All that came out of that.
green.
We're solving the world's problems here, Dr. Marcus. That's what we're doing.
No,
So
I'm just reflecting. I think everybody else is always involved because, as you do anything is how you do everything. So,
Exactly.
You're always at it with global problems as well, even though all you can do is solve local problems. So.
And selfishly, I want to create as much opportunity and wealth here in the state so that my kids can stay here and thrive and not just survive. And then my grandkids are right down the road from me, hopefully. I hope this street becomes Norse Lane.
Yeah. Well, I have a very similar. I came here 4 years ago, and immediately understood both the college and the region how important it is, to support local opportunities. I hear it from the kids. They're not against making experiences elsewhere, but they really would like to find a job here and.
But it's almost impossible.
Around, yeah.
There's not too many opportunities. Especially if you want a very well-paying job to be comfortable. The opportunities, it's kind of self-defeating. I don't quite understand it because when everything was leaving the coasts in the north coming south, Florida benefited immensely, Tennessee benefited immensely, and so did Texas. And so in my mind, I kind of see the scenario where all these businesses from California were coming and some of them would stop in Texas, but then they'd bypass Arkansas and go to Tennessee and Florida. Coming from New York, they'd come down to Tennessee, Florida, bypass Arkansas and go to Texas. Coming down from the north, they wouldn't even look at Arkansas and they'd go to Tennessee, Florida, and Texas. And I was like, why? We're more centrally located than any of those. We have great infrastructure as far as airfields and air transportation, railheads, rail transportation, good interstate systems that can get to every corner.
The streets are in very good shape.
And the streets are in great shape. And we have navigable waterways that can get to international waters via the Mississippi. So what is it? What's not being done to get these people? And I truly, what I think it is that our elected officials aren't courting them. They're not going out and getting after it to bring them here. They do onesies and twosies, but they're not really hungry and getting after it. Because I think if they were, it would be a pretty easy sell for a lot of businesses to want to come to this state. We have a knowledgeable workforce. We have a workforce that actually wants to do manual labor, and that's what they know, that's what they want to do, and they want to get back into that. Because there's a lot of people in the state when I'm around, they don't want, they just want to go to work and earn a good living and come home and enjoy themselves. They don't care about necessarily sitting in some office or moving up the corporate ladder or doing something like that. They want an honorable profession that they can go to and make a good living and then go home and enjoy themselves and not worry about everything. And that's, a nice, quiet, peaceful life. And I think we can get that. I think we can get there. Unfortunately, I don't think everybody else necessarily wants to. I don't know what their end state is, but I'm trying to figure it out and trying to make it make sense because coming from a detached perspective of being away from the state and all over the world and all over the United States, Arkansas sits in a genuinely unique position geographically. And right, there's a book over there called Prisoners of Geography. And it talks about that, about the infrastructure and how that helps nations create power and project their power around the world via markets, via military, via whatever. And geography plays a huge role in that. Well, if you look at where Arkansas sits in the terrain that we have and what we can produce, what we can grow, what we can manufacture, what we can deliver to the market, how are we not doing so much more than what we are? I don't understand it. I think we can do better.
I believe we can. Yeah.
I think we will.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll get off that soapbox.
Well, technology may play a role in that. You know.
Well, we're going to get into that with you a little bit. So I sent you a bunch of questions.
Oh my, yes. Which to read the questions out loud would take 10 minutes. So
it would, but I got a synopsis of them here and some that I want to go through. So the first one I want to hit you with is when I talked about the vision and strategy for the Secretary of State's office and how business and stuff or how science, data science, and AI and computer technologies can facilitate that. What do you think about the Secretary of State's office and the biggest opportunities for modernization using AI and data?
Well, there's two different topics, which is the potential for automation and optimization and using AI. And just with any innovative technology, and we have sort of already talked about all the caveats and the quotation marks around AI. It's not a mature technology in any way. Whatever you do means that you need to look at the process design first. First you look at the humans and what they're doing and the process design, and then you think, is AI actually the best technology to deal with that? To begin with, because even though the AI technology seems to be so conversational, so it looks like, well, that's the first thing I need to put in front of my customers, right, in front of the people who come to the government office. My view is that it's actually going to be best in the back end.
I agree.
Yeah, so it's going to be best where you have processes that you have already figured out, that you can audit, probably should audit, that you can make safe, as you pointed out yourself, which includes simple things like filing, end-to-end filing, stuff like that. Document AI that uses, what's called agentic systems, where you have an input and you have an RAG and an output. So, for example, the input could be an application text for something, for a grant or something like that.
That's something I'd want to hit on, because in my mind, this is something I want to do. And we kind of have similar things, but the idea spurred to me when I was leaving the Army. I was leaving on a senior executive level. And so we spent, I think it was a couple of weeks, getting all the great and wonderful stuff that was available to us when we got out, all the benefits, all of these resources, all this stuff. And I asked the question at the end of it, I said, that's phenomenal and I'm very grateful, but we're retiring.
Yeah.
We've been in here for a while. We're pretty good. And we've got a skill and a knowledge set now that we're entering the civilian market with. But I've never heard a specialist or a staff sergeant come to me and tell me about any of this being made available to them. And so that sparked an idea for the Secretary of State. When people go in there and they start filling out their business plan or their business idea, something like that, what I would like to see is a generative AI that comes up. And as they start inputting that information, it queries out and gets resources that could potentially be available to them.
Yeah.
So
that now augmenting their process, basically.
Yes.
I think that's a good idea too. That is very much customer facing, though. That would not be the back end. That's the front end. That's working with the customer itself. And I would say that's a potential second line improvement for sure. But you got to ask yourself, okay, you're an online shopper as well. Everybody you know is an online shopper.
Yeah.
Or in the left or right hand corner, there's always the bot. The bot has been there for 10, 15 years. How much time do you spend on the bot?
We live in Batesville, Arkansas. We kind of have to be online shoppers.
Yeah. Okay, but you know what I mean, right? You see the website. The chatbots are an old thing. Now, large language model, generative AI chatbots are not an old thing. They came out, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. I don't find myself interacting a lot with the bot. So that makes me wonder, I would want to do a test and find out how much does somebody who wants to fill in a form really want to be talked to by a machine. I don't know. That's something to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, because I know the forms. The forms are difficult. You want to see what are the different options. What you don't want to have to do is fill the form, do it wrong, have to start over again, and that kind of frustration.
So not so much on that.
Could cut some of that out.
Mine more was, there's so many people out here that have no idea what's available to them. For
So
example,
specifically for the small businesses, you want to start a small business.
yeah, start with small business, and really with like rural communities and stuff. There's so many grants, USDA grants, FDA grants. Arkansas has a bunch of different grants for rural areas and stuff too. Just piles of money that's allocated for them, and it doesn't get spent. And the way that money flows in is it's already allocated and done. So, for example, there was a lady over here that lives off of White Drive who did one, and she got all of her fencing done for free because of that grant. How many people actually know about that? She stumbled across it, and then I helped quite a few people. I helped a person get a well dug completely free. I helped another person get a roof on their barn completely free through these grants and things that were available to them. And that's what I want to see delivered to them. You know, you don't have to take it, but at least now you know it's a potential resource to allow you to get to your end state. And I also want people to define what their end state is with their business. Are you doing a business that you want to hand off to your family? Because that end state looks different. Are you doing a business that you just want to maximize as much profit as you can and sell it? Because that looks differently. That plan is different. Or are you doing a business that you just want to run until you get tired of running it and you don't want to hand it off to anyone? You know, there's different ways to organize and structure those and protect yourself. And so I want them to begin with the end in mind, work backwards, but also know that they could get to that end state much easier, much quicker, and with much less headache with these resources that's already available to them. And these are not ones that come with a hook most of the time. There's no back payment. There's no government guy coming up and checking on your property or anything. The money has already been allocated for that exact purpose. It's just sitting there. If it doesn't get spent, it goes back into the coffers or into the ether, probably some lobbyist pocketbook, and we don't want that.
That's kind of a classic knowledge management problem. The information is here, the people are here. How do you get the information to the people? So that's the simple pattern here. And the question for me is always, if somebody says, here's a new technology that can do it, is the new technology capable of doing it and doing it better? That's the question. For individual tasks, I can totally see that. So what you describe, if you have a very specific set of documents that nobody has time or even knows where they are to look through them in order to get their answer, I can see that. If you have more than one task. So these generative AIs are really good at solving one task. It's like answering one particular question. But if you have one question that has implications for something else, and then you want to optimize a third thing or a fourth thing, and that's what human jobs are typically about. You talked about creating a business. That's about the most coveted and the most difficult thing anybody can do. At the same time, it's what everybody wants to do because the stakes are high, but the prize is also really high, right? So, I've worked a lot with startups in Berlin. I've worked with businesses that were owned by families that had the problem of, handing it over to their own family or finding somebody new. Those are really, really difficult problems that need a lot of human creativity. I can totally see how generative AI or any sort of knowledge management system can make these things easier. Right. But at the end of the day, I think we're talking about human creativity and not just about finding a pot. Yeah. You have simplified it to the point of finding a pot. Your example is, I found a pot and I found another pot. And you see what I'm saying?
When you start, you're talking about hallucinations too, right?
I talk about hallucinations. I'm talking about the fact that, and you may have heard about that, I think I said in the article as well, that that when you begin to build AI, generative AIs, which is not these old models I was talking about, but the new ones, when you build them in a process, they don't just take work away that you really wanted to not do, but they also generate a lot of work, not just for you, but also for other people.
Right.
And not just because of the hallucinations, it's partly also because they have zero understanding. And if there's a model followed by a model followed by a model, and there's no human anymore in between, there's no filter that throws away the bad stuff and keeps the good stuff, to say it simply. And so that can generate more work than is worth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so basically, if you want to do these innovations with generative AI, you cannot do it as if this technology was an old technology, tried and tested, and you were just like, here's a government and they just have no clue what they're doing. Let's just take something that everybody already knows and just put it in there.
Right.
So you need more controls.
Yeah.
I think you've pointed at yourself, more controls, not necessarily regulations, but more monitoring of what's going on.
Right. That too. And we've kind of done similar stuff because I'm looking at it from a knowledge management perspective, like you just said. Because knowledge management is very difficult. Honestly, it is, to make sure that people know where the information is and how to apply it and what they're doing. Because especially in large organizations, there's a ton of knowledge. And if people aren't updating it and keeping it current on what it is they do, it doesn't matter. Or if they don't let people know where the information is and how it's stored, it does no one any good. Like, Einstein even said, you could be the smartest person to ever exist, but if you can't translate it to the other person that's around you, what good does it do? Yeah. Right? And that's true.
We didn't figure that out with knowledge management. And this is in organizations where people are very, very highly paid and they're used to take responsibility. Now we're talking about a government organization, which they're not typically known for people being very highly paid and being super responsible. So you have extra.
So these things are known. So these are known things I'm talking about. And they would be pretty simple in my mind, at least. I could be wrong. They would be quite simple with keywords to pull out. Let's say that you
give me an example. Yeah.
Well, you check the block that you're in a rural community. Well, then it's going to start looking at USDA, FDA, Small Business Association for rural counties. It's going to start querying those databases that's out there online already. And then you say, well, I'm going into farming. Well, then it's going to filter that down. Well, I'm going into livestock and not row crop. Well, it's going to filter that down. And then with that, it's going to give you a list of options. Like, hey, based on you wanting to run a livestock farm and maybe you're a female-owned business, that's considered a minority. Well, then these resources are available to you at no cost. Yeah. And some of them are grants. Some of them are just, you fill out a simple application and maybe you get it, maybe you don't. With the grant piece, it's a little bit more difficult actually writing a grant and trying to get that money. And maybe that's something that a resource that we could provide to assist in writing that grant from that office or not. But it's a very simple querying system from a known set of a knowledge base that we know that's out there, and just bringing those resources to those individuals. At least let them know, make a decision. Yeah.
I don't see why. That sounds like a no-brainer. You would want to offer something like that. Yeah, no doubt. I suppose I'm in my mind, I always play devil's advocate. I mean, I love technology and I hate it as well at the same time.
It's funny to hear you say that with your profession, that you love technology and hate it too. And you have a love-hate relationship with your computer.
You cannot love it, you cannot do it and teach it in particular without loving it, but you cannot see what it sometimes is used for without despising some of the applications and especially a lot of which is due to naiveness of people or lack of experience, lack of interest, whatever it is. And I think the AI is in that sense a particularly fickle technology to control and to harness, let's say. Yeah,
because it gives you a false sense.
Yeah, a false sense of security, and that's exactly what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the small business. Somebody who wants to create a small business, and the way you have explained it, as I said, that's a no-brainer. If I just have an idea and I want to marshal...
You're going to be responsible for creating your own business plan and putting all that creativity behind it and stuff.
So you still have to do all the hard work.
Yes, I mean, we're not going to do that.
But what you're saying is you get a better head start.
Yeah,
And
Potentially.
yeah.
We're just making known the certain resources that could
and
be available.
I can totally see that. I mean, if because somebody who sets out on that path is already probably not naive. They're already wanting to take a risk, right? So among all the different risks that making a startup and creating a business is, this one is only a small risk. It's not like they're putting their life in the hand of the AI.
Right.
So in that sense, I'm with you. I'm completely with you.
Right.
And if that doesn't exist, you could even say, should it exist? Yeah, it should exist. Yeah, it should be possible.
I think so. Yeah. I think it could be very value added.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. I see the Secretary of State's office and I see government as being a customer support service center. I mean, the citizenry is our customer.
Yeah.
And I want to gauge myself off of how well my customers are feeling like they're being served by me. So I want to go out all the time, but specifically once a quarter, I want to bring in one small business owner, maybe two from every county, all 75. And we just meet up. And in the military, as you remember these, you do AER, after action reports, hot washes. And I want to ask them, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How can we improve? And I got thick skin, as you know. I'm not going to be upset by some of the answers I get. In fact, I don't look at failure the same way a lot of people look at it. I try to fail. Because once I get to a point of failure, I know what it's going to take to get beyond that point, how to get smarter on whatever it is that I'm doing, what I need to study on, if it's physical activity, what I need to do to improve on that. But you can't figure that out until you get to a failure point.
I mean, I wouldn't even use the failure language. That's almost too military for me. What you're talking about is the truth. People actually like hearing the truth. They should. Only people who want to cut corners, be criminals, hate the truth. Right. So everybody else really wants the truth. And what you're saying is, I'm going to give them the truth. That should be a good path.
Well, we've not been getting a whole lot of truth here lately from anything. So I want to be as transparent as possible on everything that I can be across the board. But in my heart of hearts, I want to see the abject poverty of the state go away. I don't think it should exist, and I think we can fix that, and I think we can fix it relatively quickly. Some education involved in that. Yes. Maybe whatever that takes, but teaching kids how to actually manage money. Give them classes like that when they're coming up. That's not Secretary of State's responsibility, but some genuine life skills being taught to them. And that way, when they come out and they get ready to start that business, we cleared some of the hurdles for them. We've gotten some of the bureaucratic red tape out of the way. I tell people too, when I go out, I want to bring on day one, I want to bring a Doge style audit from a third party, from an independent third party to come through with this one objective. Your job is to go through every policy, every regulation, and every law that covers the Secretary of State's office that I am beholden to. Then you're going to separate the ones that are not codified in law. And whatever is not codified in law, once we vet that and we know for a fact that it's not codified in law, it goes away. I don't make a change to it. It goes away. And then I'm going to tell the legislature, if you want those things to be in existence, pass a law. You're not going to push a regulation or policy on me and have me be the bad news bearer to get the end result that you want. You're going to have to pass a law and do your job, and then go and answer to your constituency about what it is that you want to do and what you're forcing on them. And then they can vote at the ballot box and decide whether they enjoyed what you were doing or they weren't, or not enjoying it. Because they create these layers of insulation of bureaucracy to insulate themselves, and they can point the finger and say, well, that wasn't me, that was them, that belongs to the Secretary of State, when in reality, it shouldn't. Because if you're going to put a burden on your constituents, it needs to be a law, and then I'll follow the law. But if you want me to just do some red tape, some bureaucratic stuff, and get all that crap and force stuff onto people, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it at all. You're going to do your job.
I mean, I don't know too much about the Doge process that you described. Sounds reasonable to me. I thought about it on the way here. I thought, definitely is going to. Doge was on my mind because, as you know, they did use a lot of models too, as well. And what's in the press, it seems to me that it was highlighted the fact that they were young and they had certain skills and so on. I think what you just implied is much more important, namely that you get an independent view from outside the system. Somebody from outside the system, and they can be old, they can be young, they should be skilled, ideally, in what they're saying, but they need to give an independent view from outside.
I want to cover all the dynamics of small businesses, from the and some of the corporate people as well too. So I want every level. Because they're all being affected differently. And they're all in different economies around the state being affected differently. And so we need to know how we can meet them where they're at and support them as it goes. But I learned this lesson in the military. I figured out as a squad leader one day, when I was walking in the motor pool, there was a bunch of soldiers hanging out and they were talking, like soldiers do. And they were saying everything that they genuinely hated about the unit and what was wrong with it and giving ideas about how they would fix it.
But just among themselves.
Just among themselves. So you were getting raw truth. And so I kept going back to that motor pool area to where they couldn't see me and listen for a while. And then I was like, man, how do I fine tune this and get them okay to like talk to me like this and get it? And one of the things I started doing, well, it was a few things. One, individual PT with just me. I take one or two dudes out and we go and do PT, and then you start talking, growing a relationship. And then I take them to breakfast or lunch and sit down and break bread and have a meal, just onesies and twosies. And I would tell them straight up, like, rank off the table. Let's not let that barrier come between us. How can we all get better? How can we all sharpen the sword? And what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And how can I meet you where you're at? And after a little bit of time, they started being honest with me. And some things were hard to hear. Some things I didn't like hearing at all. But when I had to be honest with myself, they were right. And it made me a better leader, person, father, husband, because I started taking that in and with the end goal of actually improving myself on it. And sometimes I look back on it sadly, because I wish I'd have done that sooner. And then I could have been more value added to more people throughout my career and help them out instead of being just, a hard charger, not caring about your feelings, not caring about anything, suck it up, who cares, I did it, you can do it. That mentality, instead of like meeting people where they're at and trying to improve them, which improves everyone around them. And when I learned those hard lessons and I went to a new unit and I applied those new lessons from the blank slate, it was amazing. Just the quality, just the output, the work ethic, the camaraderie, the things that we were able to achieve together. I really felt bad that I wasn't able to do that much earlier on. I wish I had.
Well, you wouldn't have had the contrast if you had always done it.
No, and I tell people a lot of times,
that makes you more valuable.
I think so too. I would tell a lot of soldiers that you will appreciate good leadership when you have bad leadership, because you won't have an understanding of if you just have good leaders all the time, that's your norm. That's your azimuth. Like you don't have a point of reference of bad until you get a bad one. And it's amazing how there's soldiers that now call me and they're like, I got a bad one. I know exactly what you were talking about. And so I want to see the state get that. And hopefully I can bring that.
Well, I can tell you that, we have at least, I don't know the exact number, I think at least 70% students from Arkansas, most of them rural Arkansas. And I would describe them as hungry.
Yeah.
Hungry,
so that
hungry
benchmark
both
plays
for
out.
leadership, but also hungry to do stuff. So most of what I hear in the wider press about how this generation lazy and so on, this is absolutely not true at all.
I don't think it's true at all.
It's much more like not enough opportunity given to actually show that and do it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit before about like what it was like for me growing up and the work and stuff that I had to do. If they're not getting that, they're never being tested. You know what I mean? And there's value there. Yeah. When you work out in Arkansas in August and it's 105 degrees and you're out there all day long, you understand and appreciate people that are out there doing that stuff. And you know what it's like. Yeah. And nothing will make you appreciate a Tasty Freeze burger and fries and milkshake after working 12 hours in the August sun in Arkansas in the middle of a hayfield. It gives you a different feel, and you've been tested. You've been through something. You survived it. You came through. It was very difficult. And you made it through. I don't see this generation having those opportunities to be tested like that, and especially men. I think they need that. Yeah, you know, it makes them better. Yeah, I agree. So we maybe we can just maybe we can bring them over somewhere and just start wearing them out doing PT so that they figure out what that's like, right? So another one. If you were advising the incoming Secretary of State, what would be your top 3 priorities for automation and digital transformation?
My top 3 priorities. I did prepare that, so I should look at whatever. Now something else is on my mind, probably because of our discussion that we were talking about.
Well, you were in business, so...
Yeah, well, I don't know much about the business of... too much about the government business.
Well, think of it as a business because it should be run as a business.
One thing we talked about already, end-to-end filing would be certainly one of my priorities for automation. And I suppose what's stopping me is because you were thinking about AI as well. If you're just talking generic automation, that's a very, very big topic.
Let's dive into that.
You got to go into AI as well. Just want to say what I'm getting at, which everybody has heard, and I think I talked about it at the Kiwanis as well. There's automation, there's augmentation, and I think most people at the moment are aware that AI is at its current state as its best as an augmenting technology. But you're asking specifically automation, which means the entire workflow, ideally, end-to-end, runs on its own. So that's strictly speaking automation. Right. And that's a different ball game than augmenting somebody who's in charge of a process and making their life easier. So the examples you mentioned earlier, about people in private situations making their life easier, getting to money and so on. Those are more augmentation examples. Yeah? It's not like I want to get a new roof machine, do it for me. An agentic workflow could do that in the sense of if you had an agent, an AI, that would call around for quotes, right? Check the quotes, talk to the vendor, accept the quote, hire the work crew, have them come in, check if it's okay, check the timing, and then once the work is done, come back to you and say it's done. Now that would be an automated, and that's what people are currently fantasizing about in terms of agentic workflows, and it works really well for individual tasks, but for complex things, it doesn't really work. I suppose that's what I was thinking about. But in terms of actual automation, well, I think those are old ideas. End-to-end filing, I think I talked already about, because if filing is your purpose, you know what you're starting with, you know what you end with. Shuffling paper around or carrying paper by humans is a lowly task that doesn't really add anything. In fact, it includes and introduces a lot of error, right? Second thing is document scans. So having not necessarily scanning machines, but having documents scanned and reroute them if necessary to humans. And that's a little bit like, and for that you do not need generative AI. You may need it for scale, but not for, because it's a little bit like spam detection, which works very well. You get a form, and the decision if I reroute it to a human or not depends on are certain critical markers met or not. I reroute it if something is missing, or if it looks like somebody didn't really understand what they were doing, but they're coming up to a deadline. So then a human needs to look at it, stuff like that. So divide the data stream into one for humans, one that can be completed with machines. That would be a second automation issue, I would say. And I have a third one, I believe, that I thought about, which is case tracking.
Okay.
So
monitoring. When a case comes up, I want to put a timestamp of 72 hours for us to at least get back to them. I think that's fair. How could you see a process improving that?
Well, that's something that can be completely automated. I don't see any problem with it. I mean, the question here, from what you said, is between the case coming in and the message out, how many steps have to be completed? And this brings us back a little bit to the Doge question. Of the steps that are currently being done, how many of those are really necessary? Yeah?
Right.
Now, to do that, you would have to employ a technique that is not actually all that old. It's called process mining. So there's data mining, where you just look at the data and then you have to make your own conclusions. And then if you use, if you analyze processes using the timestamp and the content, you can do something called process mining that enables you to create automatic process flows that you can basically look at. But you can only not look at them, but you can also simulate them. So you can see how the data come in. And for example, you have a stop for a case where the case always stops. And instead of going through, it sits there for 30 days. Yeah?
Right.
And you could see that on an actual active live process diagram. That's called process mining. In fact, the tech companies, Google, all of the data centers use that technique in order to optimize their server capacities. So
And you can,
these are called Sankey diagrams, and they look for hotspots. They look for places where waste is obvious. But you see, when you are a human in a process, you may not see the waste where it's obvious because it's your waste, or because it's your friend's waste, or stuff like that.
Right.
And so this is an area where I can see automation being useful, but not after very clearly scanning the processes. So there's a bunch of work that has to be done, which is, why if you are in a small area or in an area where you have one specific thing, like small businesses, a specific number of cases, certain categories, which are very well laid out, it's extremely feasible to automate in that area and get the cases quickly to work through.
Right.
But what exactly is involved, how many steps there are, how many people are involved, you cannot say that without doing a process analysis.
You definitely have to do that process analysis and then set up the environment to run stuff through. Because you have different filings, you have LLCs, you have different structures of businesses that's going to come through, and all have different regulatory requirements. And also nonprofits, nonprofits that's able to make contributions to political campaigns like 501c4s, 501c3s can't, and making sure they're in compliance, because some of those are federal that drive that too. So there has to be checks and balances on it, people looking at it.
That's a good application, because you have so many input sources and so many constraints. And in the past, you would have to basically program all of those in. In fact, there were ERP, enterprise resource planning systems. I remember I worked with a publishing company with a company that produced ERP systems for publishing houses. And the reason why they could maintain their market position against SAP, which is the big elephant in this space, is only because to hire an author and keep an author was subject to a gazillion separate clauses and regulations. If he or she does this, then they have to pay 3% more for that, and it went back and forth. And so to embed that into a system so that the author could come in and the payment could go out required a custom-based system. Everything in it had to be programmed. But that was their market position. But today you could cover a lot of that with agentic workflows.
Right. And then
with new AI.
Once you get it figured out and worked, then the process starts really lining out, and the people on the back end, the receiving end, benefit greatly. And so with the Secretary of State's office, because you can run leaner, or you can have the same amount of people doing much more efficiency and productivity than they were previously.
I mean, a number of the people would now, because of the hallucinations or the fact, even if you have these RAGs, which are like context, they provide context. Right? So like, I think I started explaining that earlier. You want to you see a job application, I see a job advert, and you want to have a job application.
Right.
That's your input, that's your output. And now, how do you do that? Do you build it anew? That's a lot of work. Or do you use a context engine, which includes your resume and the 100 resumes of people who had similar jobs? You can put that in there, and that will take your input and make it into a better output. That's the idea. And that's an agentic workflow just for one particular task. But if you have 100 tasks like that, you need to have 100 agents working in concert like that. So that's the task, basically.
But it's not impossible.
No. No.
It's definitely possible. And
But if you save humans now who did this before, you would have to employ a bunch of them in order to fact check, second guess, work over, at least do spot checks that what these agents produce is actually up to par, or not just lied.
which could be a problem.
Yeah, which in this situation you could live with it, because we're not usually talking life or death. We're talking investment decisions. In a hospital situation, air traffic control, you might not be able to live with it.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
You
You talked about the military. In a military mission, you probably also wouldn't want to live with it.
No. But I think we can pull it off at the Secretary of State's office, though.
Yes, I think so too.
I think so. And
That's why I said it. It's like, it's not life or death. It's an area. In fact, I could see that kind of government office, be a place where you develop a lot of innovative techniques that then you could replicate and use all around the government. I think that would be very cool.
That would definitely be one of the goals that I would like to see. I learned today that Arkansas is also going to a digital registration for vehicles. So you're no longer going to have a hard copy registration in your vehicle. It's going to be digital. And pretty much insurance is that way right now through most insurance companies in Arkansas. You don't need to carry your insurance card with you, and they run your tag, it comes up. Well, now the registration office is going to be like that too. That's the way things are moving and the way things are going. I would rather be ahead on stuff and pioneer some of that process and make life better, more streamlined, and then see the fruits of that be replicated throughout the government and many other offices that way. And I think we can get there.
Yeah, registration process, I can see. Insurance, I also thought on the way here, I thought, if you want to motivate people and give them do a sales pitch for better processes, say it's not going to be like insurance. That is like, a process that sucks so much energy of so many people and seems almost non-optimizable. I know it is optimizable, but
we got something we can work on and build from. Right.
You need a good motivator, and some of these are going to be negative.
Yeah, some of them are going to be negative, but that's also part of my role. I see part of my role as Secretary of State too as being that agent that goes outside to court businesses and bring them in. And you need to be approachable. You need to be motivated. You need to be optimistic. You need to be able to sell what it is that you're doing. And when you're making changes like this, especially to me, the state of Arkansas is. It's a big company, the government, basically just a big company, right? You've got to communicate. If you communicate very well, then people aren't shocked. Right now, there's not, the communication is not the best. And then you have a legislative session that comes through. I think they passed like 1,500 something new laws this last legislative session. Ooh. So within a period of 3 months, you've got 1,500 new laws that are coming out. Nobody could keep up with that, really. And it's just, well, this has changed. This is new. This is effective now. This happens. And it's just like, people, it's not being communicated. They're not explaining the why behind it. And they're not letting people know that why it's important. The why matters. If you're forcing something on me that's going to change how I operate and how I do things and affect, my ability to put food on the table, maybe, then the why is pretty daggum important. And you treating that just nonchalantly as you're going through and just taking a butchering axe to stuff and how we live, then you're not doing us a service. And we need to have more of that going through, explaining the why. The Secretary of State's office is also the chief record keeper of the state.
Okay.
So they house all the records. So that's that knowledge hub. Because if you're doing something and you break the law, but you didn't know what the law was, that excuse the government gives, well, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. I call BS. If you're a leader, it's your responsibility to ensure I know the parameters in which to operate in. That's your responsibility. I would tell my soldiers that they physically control the space in which they operate in. That means everything within their sphere of influence that they can physically control is theirs and they can control it. You have your rules of engagement. You have your standard operating procedures, you have the Geneva Code of Conventions, and you have your special instructions from the commander. Other than that, as long as you stay within those, inside your physical presence, you control that space. That's yours to control. And I had to make sure that they knew what those were and the implications of them would be on them. That's the same thing as the government. Like, that's such a cop-out. You pass 1,500 laws in 3 months, and then I don't know about it. I don't know where to go and find it. I go to search on the Secretary of State's website, and it doesn't even pull it up because the search engine on that thing is just ridiculous. But then you're going to come and find me and run my business or run my life because of it? Like, that's ridiculous. Do better.
Yeah. So, I mean, to even understand what the why is to even understand why are those laws there and what are the constraints, the operating parameters that now are valid.
Exactly.
That's the
goal. Some of them are really dumb. Like, it was explained to me, like changing the names of a park ranger to game warden or whatever it was. That requires the law, right? In order to do that. So that one's simple, and easy to do. But some of these were not simple. They were pretty complex. Like, there was a series of laws that went through that changed everything about the ballot petition process in the state of Arkansas. And so, as you know, here in Independence County, we did a petition process to get paper ballots, and it passed, right? Now it's impossible for us to do that in the state of Arkansas again, because the laws that were passed, while in theory you can still do a petition, but here's what you got to do. So the petitioner, which would be me if I'm collecting signatures, has to get a background check. And I think it has to be on their expense. And so they file that with the county clerk, and then they take the petition and they walk up to you. Okay, would you like to sign this petition? I have to read the entire, I do, not you. I have to read it to you. And then after I read it to you, I have to say, can I see your identification, please? And then you got to show me your ID. And then I have to say, if you sign this, and you sign it erroneously, meaning you don't live here, you need to be notified that that's a state felony, right? Okay, now I've done all that. Would you like to sign?
That's almost like saying, please don't
sign, right? Sign. And let's say that you did that and you met the requirement for signatures after doing all that. There's also a law that says, based on a preponderance of evidence, which is the lowest bar, right? Based on a preponderance of evidence, the Secretary of State can deem a ballot measure insufficient and throw it out. So you could do all that and be successful, and then the Secretary of State can say, yeah, there's something smells fishy on this. And I think you collected signatures erroneously and didn't do it accurately. And so because I think that, and I have a preponderance of evidence to think that, 5 people told me that this happened, I'm going to throw it away. Sorry. Thanks for playing. But not going to get it done. So I know we're getting late. Are you getting ready to about wrap it up?
Probably.
You want to hit a couple more things? Well, I definitely want to say thank you so much for coming in. You've been a gem to know. You and your family is absolutely phenomenal. Batesville doesn't realize how fortunate they are to have an individual of your caliber here, shaping eager young minds. And I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you after I win and seeing if I can pluck some of those eager young minds that you identified that could benefit us and support us and making the quality of life of everyday Arkansans just a little bit better. And the goal is to improve 1% every day. And at the end of a year, that's 365% improvement. At the end of 4 years, that's a whole lot of improvement.
Great.
And as long as we try, we can do it.
I've really appreciated you asking me and sitting here. I mean, it's really very nice to talk about, the improving the local life. Improving the life of every person. I think that's very nice. And what I often miss is that when you bring technology in, you seem to suddenly play a global game. It's almost like it's for everybody. And I think it's good to have these conversations to bring things back down to what really matters. And, I enjoyed that very much.
I think we're going to get there.
Yes, I think so too.
All right, Dr. Marcus.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Please like, share, get it out there. This was some great information. It's not every day you get a world-renowned computer data science professor in here spitting knowledge out to us. And maybe I didn't over-talk him too much, and we actually got to take some of that good knowledge with us. So like, share it, follow us. And if you're able to visit bryannorris.org, and make a contribution, it would be greatly appreciated because we are a grassroots organization. We are funded by you. And with that, we will see you next week.